Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and today I get to bring you a very special side-by-side comparison of two of the best-selling compact crossovers that you can currently buy. On the left, we have the Honda CR-V. This specific example is a Sport L trim level in a color called Crystal White Pearl. And on the right, we have the Subaru Forester. This is a limited in a color called River Rock Pearl. The Honda, this current generation, came out 2 years ago in 2023. The Forester is an all-new generation for this year, so both of these examples are likely to stick around for quite a while. And while they are not exactly the same spec, this video, this side-by-side comparison, is more to illustrate the differences between the models and less between the trim levels, because they are very competitive. While they do have a lot of similarities, they also have a lot of differences. And today you are going to get to see a lot of those and help you decide which one might be the right one or maybe the wrong one for you. So if you get anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And with that said, let's get right into it. And huge thanks to Twin Falls Chevy for the Honda CR-V and the Twin Falls Subaru for the Subaru. With that said, let's begin. But before we get too far into this side-by-side comparison, I do need to give you guys a little bit of context, a little bit of background about these vehicles and my experience with them. I've driven a lot of these, especially the Subaru, because we own a 2025 Forester, and after 9 or 10 months, it's been an absolutely flawless vehicle, and it's been exactly what we've wanted. But the CR-V has a special place in my heart too, because I grew up learning how to drive on an early generation CR-V. So I like both of these, but we also have a Toyota RAV4 if you are unfamiliar with my channel or my history. So I've driven a lot of compact crossovers. I've also tested and driven a lot of the other ones. So some of the things I'm going to share, both good and bad, are going to be in how these compare to the others, to the options that you might be considering them to, because they both have a lot of strong suits. But they also have some weaknesses, and there is not one perfect vehicle. There is just the one that is the best for you. So both of these are, again, the compact crossover of class. That is their specification. That means they're roughly 15 feet long or a few inches over. They're roughly 6 feet wide, and they're roughly 5.5 feet tall. You can obviously tell that this Subaru, like most Subarus, has raised roof rails. This one also is optional with crossbars, but that is an extra option. Meanwhile, the Honda, it has the lower, sportier, less useful, but also more aerodynamic roof rails. They both sit about the same height. The Forester looks like it's taller, but also it could just be the ground is not perfectly level here. And while both of these vehicles are offered in a hybrid and a non-hybrid, it is worth mentioning that the non-hybrids, they weigh in around 3,500 pounds. The hybrids do tack on a few hundred pounds from their 1.1 kilowatt hour battery pack and the couple electric motors. And then both of these do have all-wheel drive, but on the Subaru, it's all the time symmetrical all-wheel drive, which is standard. On the Honda, you're going to have to either get it standard on a higher trim level, or you're going to have to cough up an extra $1,500 if you want an all-wheel drive system, because these come from the factory with just front-wheel drive, and the all-wheel drive system is not necessarily as competitive and all the time. Even though it's called real-time, it's not a full-time system like you get on the Subaru. But overall, they are both fantastic vehicles. They are both top safety picks, although the Subaru is a top safety pick plus, so they do come standard with a lot of safety features, even on the lowest trim level of each of these, which they both start at about $30,000 for the lowest trim level. And if you want a hybrid front-wheel drive CR-V, that's going to be about $34,000, or for all-wheel drive, almost $36,000. Meanwhile, the brand new hybrid premium Subaru Forester is about $35,000. So they are fairly similarly priced, but the Honda, to get the same equipment, maybe is going to cost you about $1,000 more. I'm just thankful across the board. These come with adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist. You guys can see the cameras here. There's one camera on the Honda, 3 on the Forester. They both have really bright LED headlights. This one, for being about $40,000, the way that this limited Forester is spec'd, it also has fog lights that are LED. The Honda does not, but it does have a tiny bit of functional aero. If that matters, it's kind of cool, but I'd rather have a fog light. Anyways, we're going to pop the hood and talk about what's underneath each of these vehicles. As vehicles keep getting bigger, having more ground clearance, and becoming more capable all around, they need more powerful engines, but with that comes the responsibility to have a more efficient powertrain. So both of these do have the option of having a hybrid engine, although the hybrid powertrain of the Subaru is brand new, and they're coming out right now in April of 2025. But the basic engine of this is a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated boxer engine. It has a CVT, which is one of the best CVTs that you can buy, other than a planetary gear set like what you get on Toyota, or I think even the Honda. So the CVT really isn't a concern, but I know that is a turnoff for some people. But that's what the Honda has too. Whether it's the hybrid or the non-hybrid, both of these vehicles go through a CVT to get to their all-wheel drive system. And this is basically a rear-wheel drive longitudinal setup, which is really cool. It makes maintenance very easy. You have the serpentine belt, the alternator, you can see the blocks, you can see the valve covers, the heads on each of the block where the block is mated. You can see all of your reservoirs, your fuse boxes, your battery, everything is on the periphery. So this is one of the easiest vehicles to do your own maintenance, to DIY it, to save a lot of money over the lifetime of the vehicle. And this engine sits down really low and really nicely in it. There's a lot of room around the periphery to work on it. But it only makes about 180 horsepower and about 176 or 178 now on the new generation pound-feet of torque. So it's not quite as powerful as the base model that you would get in the CR-V. This CR-V example, though, is a hybrid. But if it wasn't a hybrid, it's a fairly high-strung, direct injection 1.5-liter turbo engine. And honestly, if I was going to purchase one of these for the base model, I would probably choose the Subaru. Even though not as many people trust its CVT over the Honda, following the forums, I really don't hear about CVT failures. The main problem is the CVT on Subarus is expensive, but also a 1.5-liter high-strung turbo engine pushing a lot of boost to make its power, and then because it is so small, naturally aspirated, right off the line, like if you're crossing an intersection or zooming across the highway, you know, some cross-lane traffic, it's not going to have the same low-end torque, low-end punch that you might need to feel safe. So it depends on your driving habits if you want the bigger displacement 2.5 liter or the slightly more powerful, when high strung, when fully boosted, 190 horsepower 1.5 liter. But this is a hybrid. It makes 204 horsepower out of a 2 liter naturally aspirated engine. And what I like about hybrids is a lot of them don't have serpentine belts, starters, or belt-driven AC compressors. So there's a fewer maintenance items. It uses the electric motors to help start and stop the engine, so it feels more natural to have start-stop technology on something like this designed for it than a system like this or any other naturally aspirated engine where it's just tacked on as an afterthought. And then this will also have a hybrid, and you'll see those in future videos. Unfortunately, though, both of these vehicles only have a 1.1 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's pretty small. The hybrid RAV4 is at least 1.6 kilowatts, so neither of these are going to get the same MPG as the RAV4, and they also lose the storage and they lose the spare tire because the battery is behind the second row cargo area rather than under the second row seat like you get in the RAV4. But honestly, these are both very good. It's just there's just a lot of variation between the two of them. The ground clearance of these vehicles vary a little bit. The Subaru, no matter which one you get, unless you get the higher ground clearance Subaru Wilderness, it has 8.7 inches of ground clearance. Meanwhile, a front-wheel drive CR-V has 7.8, but this all-wheel drive one has 8.2. So it is about a half inch less. And then the tires and the wheels are going to vary depending on trim level. And remember, this video is not necessarily about focusing on specific trim levels, but you should know that both tires will have about 8 or 9 30-seconds of tread, and both of these specific examples come with an 18-inch wheel with a 55 to 60 sidewall tire. And then the gas door is located on the driver's side of the CR-V, the passenger side of the Subaru. And when you lock the vehicles, they do lock, so you don't have to worry about the bums trying to siphon any of your fuel. But the main difference is the CR-V has a 14-gallon tank. The Subaru has a 16.6-gallon tank. But the CR-V being more front-wheel drive focused, having a transversely mounted engine, it does get better MPG. It's going to average high 20s to low 30s if it is the 1.5-liter turbo. And the hybrids are going to average in the mid-upper 30s. Meanwhile, the Subaru, this averages about 30 for the base model, and then it's supposed to average about 34 or 35 for the hybrid. So this might be a tiny bit less on the hybrid, but about equal on the city driving, especially where this 2.5 liter doesn't have to work as hard as the 1.5 liter might in the base model of this. So overall, they're basically about the same, but the Subaru has 2.6 gallons larger of a tank to get you maybe 60 to 80 miles further range. Honda. These have anywhere from about 34 to about 39 cubic feet of room. Just depends on what features you have and if you have the battery pack. This underneath the mat is just the battery. So this is going to be closer to the 34 cubic feet. So you're going to lose a few cubic feet of room. But when you drop the seats, when you have them both down, you'll notice they lay fairly flat, but there's a huge hump. There's like 3 or 4 inches of height difference. So good luck hard camping in here without a noticeable, decently, purpose-built mattress for the back of this. But when you do lay the seats down in both of these vehicles, you have about 76 cubic feet of room. Seats are up. You have just over 30 cubic feet. Some of these might have a Harman Kardon speaker in the back, taking up about a foot of cubic room. This one does not, but you'll notice you also have some bag clips, a 12 volt. You also have the privacy shade that you could install, which is currently just not installed right now. And then you have a little bit of grip, kind of a design on the wheel wells. You can also reach, but I think it's harder to reach in here than it is for me in the RAV4 because the shape is slightly different. And then you have a temporary spare tire. Only the Forester Wilderness would have a full-size spare. That's under here with all your tire changing tools. And then you even have like a battery tray in case you get a different size battery and it doesn't get up to the terminals the same way for the connections. So storage back here, just over 30 cubic feet. And when you drop the seats, you have just over 70 cubic feet. But it's time to hop into the interior of these, and I do think that the approach, at least the side approach, looks really good, especially on the River Rock trim level. But I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of every angle of every color of these, especially the wheels that are the mix-match colors that a lot of automakers are doing. Why do they have silver and black? Just stick to one color. I think it just is a cleaner look. But the side mirrors, they are painted on this Limited. You do have turn signals, blind spot monitoring, and then there's a nice big mirror to give you good visibility. In addition to how huge these windows are, much bigger than Mazda windows, bigger than Toyota windows. Both of these vehicles kind of win in the category of visibility for a compact crossover. The doors also open really big, but it's all black materials. There's nothing too special, nothing too fancy to talk about. You do have Harman Kardon speakers, and they are a noticeable upgrade over the base speakers. And then you have a bottle holder, some snack pocket. Not really anything to talk about on the door sill, just a small Subaru. The all-weather mats are here, but they're not yet installed. Rubberized pedals, dead pedal, you have a knee airbag, you have a fuse box, you have the hood release. You have some options here, ventilation, lighting stock, leather wrapped wheel, and then this is your heated powered seat. And I like Subaru seats, I think they're very comfortable. And then you have a standard panoramic sunroof up top. And then sitting inside here is pretty nice. It's easy to get a comfortable position at 5'11". Visibility is huge. There is so much window, so much glass surface area. You can see right down the side, right down the back. This is just a really nice place to be, and when you fire it up, the needles dance, it roars to life. The horn, it's fairly high pitched. It sounds like it belongs on a smaller car. But you have paddle shifters for 8 simulated gears of CVT. You can go through info. I don't think the Canadian versions of some Subarus have tire pressure monitoring. And then this is more aggressively tuned for off-road driving than the Honda is, and Toyota, and the Mazdas. But you have some widgets up here. You have the big 11.6-inch screen. This is not my favorite. I prefer the infotainment of the Honda. You also have to turn off auto start stop every time, heated seats, wireless charger. You have a few plugins right there. The backup camera, it's grainy. It's not my favorite, but at least the trajectory lines do move, and they don't move on every vehicle. And then you have a electronic parking brake. You have some cup holders, 12 volt, and then actually a fairly decent size center console right there. You also have blind spot monitoring on the windows, auto dimming mirrors for both of these. You can turn those off right there. You have a compass that's easy to find right there. And then you have some garage door openers. You have some LED lights. You have a sunglass holder, and you have an LED light vanity mirror, which is pretty cool. But that's all. Let's turn it off and we'll hop into the Honda. As we make our way up into the Honda, you'll notice it has chrome around the windows, but it also has a black painted side mirror cap, not color matched, which is interesting, but honestly, it matches the black wheels, which I think those look a lot better than the Subaru's wheels, if I'm being honest. But again, I'm not supposed to get too trim level specific. Just know there is blind spot monitoring and a turn signal. And then the door with proximity key features, it opens large. The materials, I would say, are on par with the Subaru. This one is not showing advertised speakers up front, but it does have memory seats evident right there. Nice big handle. This one does have a couple thousand miles, so it is worn in just a little bit. It does have all-weather mats, rubberized pedals and dead pedal, knee airbag, it looks like. Your options, ventilation, lighting stock. These paddle shifters are for the regen braking because this model with its leather-wrapped steering wheel is a hybrid. And then these seats are very comfortable, but I haven't taken this on a road trip like I have with our Forester. And unfortunately, this just has a baby-sized sunroof up top. Sitting inside here, it's really nice. The windows are darkly tinted, but you can also tell that they are big. Not maybe as big as the Forester, but they're still bigger than a lot of other vehicles and much better visibility than my Toyota RAV4. And at 5'11" still, it is easy to find a comfortable position. We can fire this one up with the push button start. The memory seats are moving me around. The needles dance. Digital display all around. And honestly, it's a pretty cool system. You do have access to some pretty decent information on the left screen that can be moved around. So you guys are welcome to play around with that, especially if you are checking one out for yourself. But honestly, forward-facing visibility, everything is really nice. I do like this screen. Both of these vehicles have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. I probably prefer this infotainment system, especially where it has physical climate controls right there. The backup camera, it's just as bad as the Subaru, and trajectory lines do move, thankfully. And then you have some plugins, a wireless charger. You have electronic parking brake, your hill descent, your drive modes. You guys can see the options right there. You have brake hold, electronic parking brake, and then you have some cup holders, some storage, and a slightly bigger center console than you get in the Subaru. So that's a big win right here. And then you have what looks like auto-dimming mirrors with the button, but there's no easily accessible scene compass. You're going to have to look into the displays elsewhere if you have that equipped. And then you have sunglass holder, small sunroof, and incandescent light. So there's a few pros in here. There's a few cons in here compared to the Forester, but overall it's a really nice place to be. The back of the Subarus usually are where these vehicles really shine for a number of reasons. The door panels open huge, probably about 75 to 80 degrees of actual opening, and then because of the ground clearance of this vehicle, it's really pretty easy to slide onto the seat for the average build, I would say. The windows you can see are huge. On some vehicles like the Mazda CX-5, the Maroni sticker literally takes up all the glass there is, so you can see just how big that window really is. There's nothing special about the back door panel, though. Nothing to really talk about other than this trim piece, this Alcantara little strip. Is kind of interesting and not something I have personally seen before. And then you have an extra support there. One of the reasons why this is a top safety pick plus, not just a top safety pick, something that basically most other vehicles don't have with that high strength steel addition right there. It's really cool. But when we get inside of here, at 5'11", I have a ton of room in front of my knees. I have a couple map pockets on both of these, so Subaru didn't skip out on who's going to be the backseat driver. I have some plugins. I have some vents. I don't have any heated seats. You're going to have to pay a little bit more money if you want those. And then you have an armrest. I wish that was rotated, but it's at least comfortable. It's at least steady. You have access to your LED headlights at 5'11" with this cutout. I have some really good headroom, and I have access to a huge piece of glass just in front of me, above my head. And that's pretty cool. So with that said, let's hop out of this and into the Honda. If we come over to the Honda, it also has a huge rear window, which I really appreciate. The door panel also opens probably at least as big as the Subaru, maybe even a couple degrees more. Oh yeah, that's definitely a few degrees more. That's probably like 85 degrees of actual opening. That's really cool. And that's not a Maroni sticker, but you can just tell how big the windows are. They are very similar to the size that you get on the Forester. But there's no Alcantara. Of course, that's just trim piece specific. Overall, it's a decent door panel, nothing to really talk about. And for some reason, this seat looks higher up in proportion to the vehicle's height than the Forester, so just make sure you don't bump your head. You'll also notice it doesn't have the second latch and the extra high-strength steel on this current generation. But at 5'11", sitting behind myself, not only do I miss out on the mat pockets, but I'm going to have to sit behind the passenger if I want those, if I want to be a backseat driver. Otherwise, you have some vents, you have some plugins, and then I think this does the armrest better, and it does. You can see it's right down the center, so you can fit your arm, your buddy's arm, and your cups. And headroom, it's probably pretty similar, maybe a little bit less because these seats are higher. I did rub my hat right there when I was leaning back just now, but you have an LED light, and from my eye position, I can actually hardly see the glass right there, so that's a little bit of a knock on this vehicle. My final thoughts of the 2025 Honda CR-V and the 2025 Subaru Forester, and presumably what these will be like for the next few years, is I think they are both awesome vehicles. They're both really good compact crossovers. They don't compromise a whole lot. They do have a lot of creature comforts, a lot of safety features, and a lot of things to protect you and your family while giving you an enjoyable drive, while averaging probably 30 miles per gallon or better, and having an all-wheel drive system, decent enough tires that they can take you on a fair off-road or soft-road adventure right out of the box. But neither one is perfect. They obviously have their differences, but thankfully both of these are very much function over form. They have good visibility, and they do a lot of things well without compromising your day-to-day routine, your day-to-day life. Both of these have things that my Toyota RAV4 doesn't. They both have features that other vehicles don't, but neither one of them is perfect, and I do have separate videos discussing my potential concerns and issues with purchasing one of these that you might be interested in. But overall, they're both by Japanese automakers that are very good, on the rise, doing better and better all the time. They learn from their mistakes, they improve, and that's why both of these companies are thriving. So I really don't think you could go wrong buying a Honda in 2025 or a Subaru in 2025. Both of these vehicles are rated very highly by Consumer Reports, and owners seem to love them, and there's a reason why hundreds of thousands of these get sold every single year. But with that said, if you guys got anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below, subscribe if you haven't already, and with that said, I wish you guys the best, I hope you take care, and until next time, see ya.